Good day, all, and welcome to the December 15th meeting of the Citizen Oversight Board. Glad to have everyone today. We are excited to welcome Alfredo Reyes, who joined the board a few weeks ago, but this is the first online meeting that he'll be attending. So that's exciting, and we're glad to have full board again. And so thank you for your service and commitment, and we're excited about the ideas that you'll bring to the board. Do you want to say he's not on? So
he should be joining us in a moment.
Okay. I was going to say if he wants to say anything about himself, but no. Okay, another exciting piece of news is that City Council has reappointed Vice Chair Nick Weber to a full 4-year term for the COB. So that's great. Again, happy to have a full board. Mayor Johnston has chosen to reappoint both Sheriff Jiggins and Fire Chief Fulton to their positions. So that's also thrilling. We obviously have been working with those individuals for a few years now. And so helpful to just continue the traction that we have. In case you missed it, on November 24th, the board issued an open letter to city leaders asking for increased transparency and oversight of legal settlements. The letter can be found on our website, and we are beginning to meet with the relevant stakeholders. And we're working on scheduling that, and we'll begin, sort of collaborative brainstorming discussions in the new year. I will move into board business. And our last meeting with minutes was actually November 3rd, because our meeting earlier in December was at the jail. And so the board took a tour, and we didn't take very many minutes about that. So if board members have had a chance to review the November 3rd minutes, if I may have a motion to move those minutes. Great.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
Great. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's a lot of enthusiasm about the minutes this morning, so that's great news. Okay. With that,
As a lawyer who's done corporate governance, I always love good minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's where transparency comes from, is writing things down. So, as a board that's really focused on transparency, we ourselves are enthusiastic about writing things down. So we're joined today by Chief Thomas of the Denver Police Department and Commander Herrera. First, Chief, congrats also on your reappointment. We are, as I mentioned about the other chiefs, enthusiastic to continue working with you. And we think we've made some good traction and collaboration to date, and looking forward to more of that. We wanted to also highlight some of the
and Chief, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Julia.
Yeah,
Chief,
you go ahead.
thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much for the tour of the jail as well. I think I and others found, very informative, and appreciate your taking the time to do that 2 weeks ago. Oh, sorry. It wasn't you. It was Sheriff Diggins. My bad.
Right.
Yeah. No wonder you looked bewildered when I said that.
But we are grateful for that process, and it brought certainly some insights to the board, and it was an opportunity to onboard new members really to the work of the Citizen Oversight Board. So that's great. Chief, I just wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the positive changes that you've made, certainly things that we've engaged on, particularly the critical incident briefing process and the proactive release of body camera footage prior to briefings. Been some interesting news, nationally, and particularly focused on the New York PD this week in the New York Times, highlighting, sort of selective and discretionary release of footage if it is beneficial to the department. And I think your approach of really leaning to what is the law in Colorado, but also being even more proactive than the law requires is greatly appreciated by the board. And we hope to keep that up, and just want to make sure you're recognized for that. With that, we sent over a number of questions, and so Chief Thomas, I'll turn it over to you for any opening remarks, and then if you want to proceed through the questions, we'll.
Okay, well, I mean, I just thank you for recognition of my reappointment, and certainly looking forward to not only continuing to serve the citizens of Denver, but also continuing to stay engaged with with this group, with the COB, understanding that we're all really working towards the same things in terms of transparency and public trust and things like that. So certainly willing or eager to continue that work. I'll sort of dive right into the questions, I suppose. The first question being relative to sort of the new process that I am looking towards as it relates to having community members be part of the use of force review board. As I think everyone is aware, there are two voting positions that are civilian members of our community that sit on the use of force board. As this board recognized, those have been the same two civilian members for an untold amount of time. Certainly can see the reason why there will be an ask to move away from that. A suggestion was made by this body, one that I understood and recognized as being important. So I had some discussions with OIM, had some discussions internally, and I think the process that we came up with that I think I introduced to this board was to take recommendations from city council and vet those individuals, kind of put them through some processes so that they have a general understanding of our practices and policies, procedures, and then kind of have them on a list, and we would just kind of rotate through that list as use of force boards come up. And so what I can tell you as far as where we're at in that process, so we've solidified the process, and I think we've put the infrastructure in place. There has been a communication that has been generated by Miss Emily Locke, who is the legislative liaison, the city council liaison in the safety office, and she will be, I would imagine, in the next in the coming days, connecting with each individual city council person, giving them that letter, explaining, the direction that we're headed, the importance of them, forwarding us names that they think would be good in service in that role. And then we will continue that process to identify those individuals to be on that eligible roster, for lack of a better term, so that we can go through a rotation of selecting them for upcoming use of force board meetings. So any questions or comments about that specifically? Yes, Julia.
Yeah, did you say how long their terms would be?
I feel like that is something that we did hammer out, and I'd have to look back at our notes. Ms. Castle, do you remember what that time frame was?
I don't offhand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean that was certainly a consideration for how long, and I'm sure that we came to a determination collectively. I'll have to look through my notes and see what that time frame is. But I think like, let's say it's 2 years. Obviously, I think that the number of use of force meetings that we would have, I think that we would have that opportunity to kind of roll through that list, so that nobody would be stale for quite a while.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it goes without saying that there's a lot of value to an institutional knowledge, and once
certainly
members have been onboarded, they can probably provide more value than rotating quickly. But
yes.
I think there's a balance, right, of
Certainly.
too long and becoming not impartial, and too short and not having the right knowledge to thrive.
Certainly. So the next question related to the letter that you all sent me some time ago about the templates that we currently use for sending out I guess outcome letters to complainants as it relates to internal affairs cases. And I think, we can, I guess, have a discussion about that. Certainly understand the desire to have something that's a little bit more informative and provides greater detail. And I guess maybe the question that I have is understanding sort of the time challenge that I think our staff has already in terms of processing a number of cases through IAB and then processing a number of cases through our conduct review office. Trying to find a balance between providing adequate detail, but also not overburdening them from a time perspective. Just thoughts on whether we still want to have some sort of template that provides areas to fill in detail, or what exactly are you looking for? Yeah, I mean, we've had the internal discussion, understand, or I think collectively recognizing the need to be to describe more, but not knowing if this is like freehand or still kind of a template. So Julia?
Yeah, I think our thought is a template, but also with adequate detail to let the complainant know. Well, we heard from community members who really hadn't heard at all what the outcome was. So starting with just like the case has been closed and here's, the basic information about it. I think providing clarity as to why, the case was closed or how the case was closed, right? Was discipline applied or not, and why not? In the case of discipline being applied, perhaps it's just attaching the order of discipline anyway, since that's a public document. So, I think what we heard from a couple of community members is that, first of all, there was confusion among the departments in this ecosystem about who was sending them. And so removing the monitor's office from that at all, I think is helpful. Having you all be the owner of that's really good. And then, people just wanting to understand, like, if discipline wasn't applied, why not? And just allowing them some amount of closure. It is a closure letter, but like helping them with closure in the matter.
Yeah.
In the case that we heard, the person's father was killed on a bicycle and it was a really sudden event. And so, sort of seeking answers in that time. I think this letter will not, provide all the clarity that somebody wants at that, but at least it can just help procedurally.
Okay. Daniel.
And if I might just chime in real quick, based on some recollections from previous conversations, I think also adding some clarity in a template form is should be perfectly fine. But I think in some of the departmental orders, when it does get to that point, there are little tables that say this charge sustained, this charge not charge, this specification sustained,
Yes.
this charge specification not sustained, this specification exonerated, whatever it might be. But having some, if I recall correctly, there was a direct for some further clarification on what exactly was examined in those cases.
I see.
Given that complaints can very frequently are multi-part, and that can provide either some reassurance to complainants that every important part of their complaint was in fact addressed, and also provides an opportunity if there was a misunderstanding or miscommunication, provides them an opportunity to seek to have any part that was not addressed addressed. So
Stefan, I see your hand.
Chief, this comment is going to go against your objective of efficiency. And given that I've had experience with consumer organizations that respond to customer complaints and doing the like, and there's a huge volume there, and I get it. And you're trying to give people the information you feel they need, but also deal with the volume. would it at all be possible? I mean, a lot of this is people feeling the need to be heard, right?
Yes.
Even if a decision was reached that they don't agree with. Would it be, I hate to put this on, but it would be possible to say, even at the end of the letter, if you have any further questions, please contact X. I know that's going to create an additional burden. And I don't think everybody would call. They probably would call to complain if their complaint was not sustained, etc. But I wonder if thinking about that, and that would create additional manpower issues. I'm just throwing it out there for you to consider.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a reasonable consideration. I'd have to, determine who that is if it's not me. And then, Liz, is there not at the end of these letters, I think it's at the end of the decline letters, but at the end of these sort of decision letters, is there not a contact for your office? And maybe that's the challenge, is that they're reaching out to you for questions that maybe are best for us to answer.
Right. And I think our goal is to direct them to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put some thought, as to who maybe it would be best to, receive those calls. And I would agree, Stefan, that that's probably going to be relatively infrequent. But certainly, giving folks the opportunity to be heard, if for no other reason for them to just express their displeasure with how what the outcome was.
And
Thanks.
Chief, I'll get together with you on
Okay.
that, and we can collaborate.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, so if that's it for that, then I think the next topic was relative to the AIDS Center and questions about whether or not our rate of referrals or arrest deflections has increased. And I'll tell you that the trouble with that is right now currently today there's no I guess tally of how those referrals were made, whether it was a walk-in off the street, whether it was a referral from safety, whether it was a referral from SET, or a referral from DPD or even DSD. And so I know that in the safety department, they are working with the AIDS Center to see about how do we quantify where these referrals come from. Certainly, I think it's a value of DPDs to deflect, where appropriate. And I know that we do make great use of the AIDS Center, whether it's resolutions for individuals that are experiencing homelessness or other individuals that we recognize have chronic challenges, and trying to kind of help them toward a better path. The one sort of difficulty right now that I think safety is trying to wrap their hands around is that one of the easiest ways to ensure, I think, appropriate, deflection or referral is the opportunity to create a warm handoff. So, it's very easy, 9 to 5 to find someone that needs services or that needs something that the AIDS Center can offer, putting them in the police car if they're willing, and then transporting them to the AIDS Center, or even telling them go right now to the AIDS Center, they'll be able to help you. But when their doors are closed, it creates that it eliminates that opportunity for that warm handoff. And I think that without that warm handoff, without that that opportunity to kind of help make that connection, I think that lessens the likelihood of a deflection opportunity. You may contact someone at 10 o'clock at night and feel like that's a great deflection opportunity or referral opportunity, and they may even agree with you at 10 o'clock at night and commit to you at 10 o'clock at night that they're going to report first thing in the morning to the AIDS Center. but then for first thing in the morning rolls around, and I think that they have different motivations at that time. So again, I think a consideration of expansion of hours and other, other things to create the greater likelihood that we'll, have those successful outcomes with successful handoffs and deflections. I'm certainly open to whatever plans are out there. Stefan?
Yeah, Chief. I mean, we've made this point a couple of times, and I know this isn't in your bailiwick, but in terms of where funding, and I know we're told it's a funding issue. Yeah, I mean, the majority of things that are going to happen where you would be able to deflect arrests are in the evening hours. And the fact that the aid center isn't open after 5 o'clock is really problematic, I think, in connection with ensuring its overall success. And again, I know it's a city budget issue, but I mean, I think we feel that that should be a huge priority for the city in terms of expanding evening hours for the aid center. It's going to help you all. It's going to help the people that are, going through these issues, and we're going to be able to help them. And I it's just unfortunate that hasn't happened.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page, and I do believe that it is a priority for the city, and it's not just a budget issue. I think everything is a budget issue, but I think for us it's not just the budget issue. I think it's also a capacity issue, because we're not just relying on GP or I guess Department of Safety employees to staff the aid center. We're also I think relying on our partners, the providers. I think also have to have a footprint that extends beyond normal business hours as well. So again, I think everybody recognizes the challenge. I think everybody is trying to be equal partners in terms of coming together to try to find some solutions. And so I know that this is a priority for Director Saldate. So I'm hopeful that maybe the next time that we have an opportunity to talk, I can talk about some advancements or enhancements that are in the offing. So the next item is relative to a technology that we have recently employed. It's called Spider Tech, and what Spider Tech does is when someone who's calling for police services either calls 911 or the 9 police number from a cell phone, which I think probably 90% or more of the community does, that it captures that number and then it sends them text message updates relative to whether or not the police response is delayed, and then I think there's prompts for providing feedback for 911 specifically, and then providing feedback for the police response specifically. And I can tell you that I think that is going well. I get a report every day of how many people have taken advantage of the opportunity to provide some feedback, and I think overall the feedback has been very positive. I think that there are a couple of I've seen some monthly reportings that they've put together for us to sort of analyze responses, and I think that there are some 5-point scales where our sort of approval rating is in the 4s, and then on a 10-point scale where our approval rating was in the high 7s. And so I think that that when we do get there, which understanding that getting there in a timely fashion has been a challenge. When we do get there, I think more often than not, we are able to satisfactorily resolve the issue and demonstrate good customer service. And I think that kind of leads into the other public safety survey that we launched. It just closed, I think, a week ago. I think maybe it was last Friday that it closed. And we had over 8,000 people that provided feedback, responded to that survey. I think there was representation on that survey because it was by neighborhood, by the 78 neighborhoods that we have in our city. And obviously some neighborhoods had far more participation than other neighborhoods, but there was some sample from every single neighborhood. And so now we are just waiting on our university partner to go through that and help us understand, our legitimacy rankings and our responsiveness and other concerns that citizens have, kind of by neighborhood, so that we can be responsive to that data by neighborhood. And I can imagine that there are communities where our trust and satisfaction is very high, and then in neighborhoods where trust and satisfaction is low, and those are obviously the neighborhoods that we want to focus on in order to change that. So other questions about either one of those two surveys? Okay, so the second set of questions is in relation to an in-custody death that resulted from a police contact that occurred, I think, exactly 1 month ago, where an individual was in our custody and then ultimately stopped breathing, and officers stopped, began chest compressions, and ultimately I think that person died in our custody. A couple questions. One, specific to the officers doing those chest compressions without first unhandcuffing the individual. And that actually was a media question the day that we did our briefing. And so that, kind of got me started on doing some research and asking some medical professionals, and the medical advice that I received from both the medical director assigned to DFD as well as the chief paramedic is that actually, getting on the chest and starting compressions as quickly as possible is the advice that they would give. They would not advise us to take the time to unhandcuff somebody. I think they said that, maybe somewhere around 4 minutes into doing chest compressions, if you could have somebody, quickly unhandcuff, then that might be optimal. But they did not recommend that we institute a policy where we unhandcuff somebody before we begin chest compressions. I think the other questions related to AEDs. We do not have AEDs assigned to all of our police cars. All of our officers know how to use them, but they're not assigned to each of our police cars. I'm told that those devices are about $2,000 a piece. We have them in all of our police stations and in headquarters, I think on every floor within headquarters. So we all know how to use them, but they're not readily available in every police car because of their expense. If that were some direction that we would be inclined to move, we would have to probably seek grant funding or something like that in order to secure enough AEDs to have them in most of our patrol cars. The second question was whether or not it would be advisable, or whether or not there's policy or direction or training relative to officers maybe running into an adjacent building to grab their AED and use that. And again, having conversations with the medical director and the chief paramedic, they actually suggest that, again, chest compressions is the most effective and the most immediate life-saving tactic to take. And so they would not suggest taking any amount of time to locate an AED. Even if it was in the trunk of your car, they still suggest that you begin chest compressions before you get out and start up the AED. I can tell you though that Denver 911 is working on a project called Pulse Point, where they are getting an inventory of all the AED devices in the city. So every building in the city that has an AED device, 911 is getting an inventory of that. And so I think that works for the community two ways. Number one, if you're calling in because someone's having a medical emergency, 911 will be able to tell you where the closest AED is for you to go and maybe make use of that yourself, or another family member, loved one, bystander. But then the other advantage to that is that dispatchers will be able to inform us where the closest AED is. So looking forward to them completing that project, and then I'm sure that we will all get together and determine how that will be most beneficial for all of us. Julia?
I'll just preface by saying I'm not a medical professional, but I have had to take CPR twice in the past 2 years. And part of the protocol is to send for help and have somebody else go for an AED. So I just wonder if there's, some protocol that could be added, if it's a public place and there's a bystander that could go grab one, especially if you've started to get an inventory, that could be a really, important life-saving step. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. I think the next question relates to treatment-based specialized courts in Denver, and I can tell you that I meet pretty regularly with the mayor, and I think he is open to the idea of, for instance, a drug court. I think particularly as it relates to his understanding that a lot of the challenge with the unhoused community is that a lot of them, well, I don't know if it's fair to say a lot of them, but there's a number of them that have either a mental health concern or a substance misuse concern, or sometimes there's co-occurring concerns. And so I think we've talked before, and I think you've heard before from the mayor, his desire to take pods in the jail and have one so that people can receive mental health support, and another so that people can receive substance abuse support. And I think that work is still top of mind. And I think that that as we continue to move towards housing 1,000 and understanding kind of the challenge of keeping people in housing and then dealing with those individuals who are refusing to accept housing, but still, I think, committing crimes in our community because of their either their substance misuse issue or their mental health issue. I think working with the courts in order to help people get the the treatment that they need. So those discussions continue, and certainly am supportive of specialty courts, whether it's veterans court or a drug court. So certainly supportive of finding the most appropriate pathways and I think the best outcomes in those situations. And then I think the last subject for me before I let Jake take over and talk about the BolaWrap is the proposed drone program. So we actually just met with a group of community members earlier this week to kind of go over sort of our draft policy, and took some suggestions from them. We will continue to seek suggestions on solidifying our policy. I think at some point we will be presenting to the safety committee of the city council with our proposal. And I think in my mind, sort of the first thing to do is get a policy in place and get some protocols and procedures in place, and then put some thought towards securing a drone. I do think that there's going to be an opportunity to use grant funding or state monies in order to purchase a drone, and that way we can, I think, build out our program from there. And I think Jake might be able to support this and that. I think once we actually have our drone secured and our policy in place, I think that in order to get someone trained up as a qualified operator, probably another 3 months. And so I think in my mind, this is kind of a end of Q2, beginning of Q1 goal for DPD. So hopefully I'll be able to provide more detail as we move forward. Yes, Julia.
Thanks. Yeah, I helped the city of Boulder when I was there institute their drone policy, and one of the kind of key lessons learned is just the intercoordination of departments in the use of drones. So, you know, an example might be a parade, or you know, things where multiple departments might be flying. And so you know, in looking at the policy, the draft policy that you provided to us, I think you're really on the right track and have thought about a lot of the things. The coordination across departments, particularly in the jurisdiction I was in, was really important. The other thing that I think was maybe understated in your policy was just really the treatment and use of data that's passively gathered. So, you know, if I'm leaving my house to fly to your house with my drone, I'm going to fly over all sorts of backyards that, you know, maybe somebody's growing too many pot plants, or, you know, something cuckoo's going on there, but that's like not the purpose of the flight. And so just really being clear on what data you're gathering, how long you're keeping it, who you're sharing it with, and the analysis around that, I think is pretty important.
Yeah, and I think we can flesh that out. And I think just from what I understand, I think that the software that we will be attaching to the drone would have the camera fixed as it's flying, and obviously there would be a flight path that we would be able to share on a dashboard so people could see the flight of the drone. The camera would be fixed. It would not be an active camera until I think it got within 300 feet of the target location. And then I think that if there was, you know, similar, I think, to body worn camera, if it gets tagged as associated to a particular incident, then it would be retained as long as, you know, we're supposed to, specific to that incident. But then I think if it's not tagged at all and relate, you know, for instance, if it you know, flies to a report of a fight or a report of gunshots, gets there, doesn't detect anything, and then just returns, and maybe even we cancel our response, that data is only going to be maintained, just like Axon data is only going to be maintained up for 30 days.
Yeah, it makes good sense. You know, my experience in Boulder is that the file size for, you know, drone cameras is much more significant than body worn cameras. You know, they're typically high resolution and it's expensive to maintain. So it is important to get around that. A couple of other things that maybe are worth mentioning is, you know, in cases where there was not some sort of like secret investigation, we chose to issue public notice if we were flying the drone. And so particularly, you know, depending on the size of the drone, we happen to have the big scary one. And so letting people know that was flying and why, you know, with 48 hours notice seemed to be something that could appease folks. And then something that wasn't addressed in your policy was really the concerns around cyber. So, you know, anytime you've got, you know, a device like that, ensuring that you're on like a secure network and making sure, you know, it's not going to be taken over and flown into things, you know, is obviously important.
Okay. Yeah, we have discussed that. We can probably add some language this week to that also.
Great.
Thank you. So I think that was it outside of the BolaWrap question. So Jake, you want to take those?
Yes. Would it be helpful to read the questions first? Okay. Number one, the BolaWrap is marketed as being designed for de-escalation and a force avoidance tool that is, quote, particularly well suited to non-life-threatening calls that involve mental health crises, intoxicated subjects, or other instances in which a non-assaultive contact isn't compliant, end quote. In your view, is the BolaWrap a tool for escalation or de-escalation? So,
Commander, can I offer one suggestion in the beginning, particularly for members of the public who may be listening? Can you just describe what the BolaWrap is and its intent, just to give an overview before you get into the question?
Sure. Yes. So the BolaWrap is a product sold by a private publicly listed company. It's designed to shoot a Kevlar cord, a tether that's about 12 feet long, for police, law enforcement use to detain people. So it actually looks like this. This is like a stress ball one, but this is the size and shape of it. And they're single use. The rope pops out of a cartridge using the same technology as airbags. So compressed gas, when the, does anyone like Star Trek? It looks like a phaser. So when you push forward on the button, the rope comes out. It's designed to wrap around someone. The target areas are the arms, sort of your upper biceps, and below the knee. So it's been around for some time. So this is the second iteration. The first iteration used actual bullet casings, like you would put in if you ever have to frame a basement and want to seat your bottom 2x4, the ram set. So it's similar to that. This has no charge. It's just the same compressed gas that's used in airbags. So we've had them come out on 2 separate occasions for demos. It's been deployed on me personally about 7 times. The appeal for it in terms of the law enforcement use is it's a way to detain people without relying on any pain compliance. It doesn't hurt at all. Most of the time you don't know it's on your body until you look down and see it. It has a very noticeable green laser that projects out of it to show where the officer should deploy it. But just that, and it's very loud, as is an airbag being deployed. So those 2 factors completely disorient the person. At least in my experience, when it was used on me, it was so disorientating that you didn't know that the device had been used on you until you looked down and you saw it. And so the end of the tethers have barbs, a little, about the same size as a fish hook, but unlike, say, the taser, they're not intended, and they don't penetrate human flesh. They're not probes that penetrate the body. They're barbs that are designed to catch on the clothing. So that's how they're different. They're actually hammered down so they don't poke out. It looks like 4 fish hooks. And so that is the BolaWrap. And we contacted 3 different police departments who use it widely. Hillsborough County, Florida, that's Tampa Bay area, LaGrange, Georgia, and LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department. And
Well,
we don't have.
It's essentially designed to be a very effective restraint tool.
Yes, that's it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about how it works or doesn't work?
I have a question, and if other board members have their hands up, go ahead. Terrence, you go first.
Sometimes tasers, thanks for being here, Commander. Sometimes tasers aren't completely effective, as most of us realize. How effective is the BOLO compared to a taser in terms of, I guess the right word is incapacitating a subject?
Well, that's a good question. So currently under DPD policy, a taser can only be deployed if someone is exhibiting active aggression. So that's near the top of the use of force continuum. So the advantage of the BolaWrap is it could be used lower down before they're actively trying to threaten or assault an officer. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, because it doesn't cause pain. I was always, whenever you develop or try to test a new technology, I jump to the worst case scenario, right? What if this is used against a bystander unwittingly, or a violation of policy? The advantage of the BolaWrap is it doesn't hurt anyone, and you can take the cords off with common scissors. So part of our research was looking into how successful it's been. So it really depends on how the policy is written. So LaGrange, Georgia, they're a small police department, and maybe of the 3 police departments, they use it pretty extensively. So the most empirical data I could get was Tampa used it 52 times this year, and it was successful 48% of the times, so 88% of the time. But they hadn't used it yet. They might have a strict prohibition on using it on someone who's running away. So we actually did demos when I was walking away from the person using it, and it's effective there, because it's not like a BolaWrap in like the cartoons where it wraps around your feet and you fall down. It just means you can't lengthen your stride. So you don't lose your balance, you don't fall down. It just means you couldn't turn and sprint and run away. And the point of the BolaWrap is it isn't to be used when an officer is by him or herself. It's when you already have developed a plan in which you want to detain someone, because once immediately it's deployed, you have that disorientation period where officers can approach quickly, put on handcuffs, and then there's no resultant use of force. The person's detained, and usually they think they've been, I've watched a lot of their YouTube videos, and the people it's being used against have no idea kind of what happened, and they think they were tased, but that the taser didn't work. So that's LAPD has fewer deployments, but they also have a few a smaller pilot than the other 2 police departments.
The other thing that, just really quickly, Terrence, the reason why I kind of authorize the testing of this particular device is because I am aware of instances where a taser was ineffective. Either because one of the probes missed, or the probes hit the intended target, but because of the clothing that they were wearing, it wasn't able to be effective. And so just wanted to see what else was out there in terms of something that would be effective regardless of the clothing that somebody was wearing. And I think maybe had a lesser probability of being ineffective in terms of being able to wrap around somebody. So that was kind of the primary reason why we engaged in the initial testing phase.
I have a couple questions, and I really appreciate you clarifying that it's not like the cartoons, because that's sort of what I had in my mind, where you're just sweeping people's feet out from under them. So I think that's a really helpful visual. It was a surprise to me that like 12 feet was the span, and that seems really big. And so what happens if there's a group of people and people are sort of caught into that? Glad to hear it doesn't hurt. Also, that's music to my ears always. And so like, just talk about like what happens in 12 feet. And then a secondary question is sort of about like, what's the level of training required for an officer to use it? And, it does have, you said not barbs, but it does have hooks. So like, what happens if you like hit someone's face, or, sort of talk about like, what's that about?
Sure. So you need to be, it can't be used close in against someone. You have to be about 12 to 16 feet away. That's their optimal parameters for deployment, because the cord has to have time to start little and get long, if that makes sense. And so it's traveling fast and to wrap around. So it wouldn't be used against groups because it wouldn't be very effective. It won't do well if it all depends. Like if you were standing, they've had some instances where officers have used it when someone was seated and then they just like tied them to the chair and then we're able to handcuff. But it wouldn't work if you were in a tight space. So there's definitely limits to it. It wouldn't replace anything we currently use or deploy. That was one common concern in the 3 police departments. All of the line officers were saying it's just one more thing we have to carry. So that's one concern. But it wouldn't really have either good effectiveness in like a protest setting. It's more of one-offs where you can control the time and space where it's used. And also it hasn't been used when someone was armed. The best case they gave me was someone had a piece of rebar and they were able to actually shoot 3 of them, one on top of each other. And it really just like spider webbed him like Spider-Man. And then the rebar was stuck to the chest. And then they were able to grab the rebar, move the hands and handcuff them. But we wouldn't expect officers to use this if someone had a knife and certainly not a gun.
And can you speak a little bit more to the training? And the idea would be that every officer has this as another tool on their belt, or it's like deployed for specific, routes, or, like what's that? How would you use it?
I mean,
So sorry, Chief.
the only thing I was gonna say is that, I mean, this tool is actually, fairly expensive. So there's, it's a bit cost prohibitive. So it would not be something like Taser where we would outfit every officer with these. I think that, we would have to be very, if we even decide to do this, I think we're a long ways from deciding that this is the direction that we want to go. But if it were, I think we'd have to be very intentional about who do we deploy this particular tool to. Is it our SORT unit? Is it our Metro SWAT unit? Is it our impact team officers in the districts? Because I don't think that we would be able to purchase enough to outfit every officer, but maybe smaller units, within each district or something like that. So the number of devices deployed will be small, and then the number of officers that we would, require specific training would be a smaller number. Yeah, can you talk a little bit just about what that training looks like for the officers that might be or have been identified in other jurisdictions?
Yes. So in order to carry, you need 8 hours of training. So we would have our less lethal coordinator become a certified master instructor. We'd probably have about eight or 10 of those who would then be able to train the officers we give it to. So you need 8 hours, but they recommend 16. So we'd probably go with the recommended 2 days of training to be able to use it. And we're still in the inception phase. It's on the literally on the drawing board. We haven't given it a green light, and we haven't secured funding for it. So it's just it's just a theory at this point.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Chief and Commander, what do you think about, and again, I know you haven't given the green light yet, but if it is, again, in terms of informing the public, transparency, so the public knows what it is, if we do decide to roll it out, and there appear to be good reasons to do that once it's fully tested and trained and the like, will there be some sort of, I don't know, communication to the public that maybe even has a video that shows how it works? that sort of thing, just so, the public's aware that, this is a
Yeah.
tool that the law enforcement's going to use.
Yeah, that's exactly what I envision is probably like a press conference where there would be a demonstration, an understanding of the what and the why. I think very similar to when we launched Star Chase. We didn't just do Star Chase on a couple of cars, and all of a sudden we started deploying them on stolen vehicles or vehicles that were suspected of being involved in a crime. We were very intentional about having out here in our courtyard, we invited the media, and we even did demonstrations on how this tool would actually work, so that when it is deployed, people see it. It's not like a complete surprise.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Just one follow-up question. Would the use of the BolaWrap constitute a use of force?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Terrence?
I have one last question. It's completely personal. So if you get to the point where if you decide to do this and you have the press conference, can we volunteer people to be test dummies?
I suppose so.
I have a few names.
Okay.
So you didn't get your questions, Commander.
That's all right. I'll just say, if there's no specific questions, that this is it's really a small piece and part of a larger revamp or overview of how we teach and utilize de-escalation skills. So we have a strategic objective of reducing use of force. The way to do that is to get better at de-escalation. So we've partnered with Washington State University. They have on campus there something really cool called the Complex Social Interactions Lab. And what they do is, if they select your agency, they will have a bunch of undergrads and retired police code your body-worn camera video for things you want to improve or things you're interested in. So we're interested in having them look at thousands of interactions and give us maybe 10 to 20 really good Denver specific examples when patrol officers are able to de-escalate someone. And from there, we could build a checklist of these are concrete empirical examples of, these 5 things in order have been shown to de-escalate people in Denver police encounters. So that's like a long-term, that's the overarching goal. And then part of that also is they're looking at the other side of when people when the de-escalation isn't working, and when those people attack officers. So can we provide, again, an evidence-based list of pre-attack indicators that we can use to maybe intervene quicker with a tool like the BolaWrap before an encounter becomes a full-fledged fight involving officers with much higher risks of injuries to everyone?
Other questions specific to BolaWrap?
I'll just say, appreciate the, exploration of less lethal, non-lethal tools. Anytime someone is hurt before they're convicted and after they're convicted, we're concerned. And so, understand this is an expensive tool, but certainly offers a promise of people not being shot. So.
Certainly. Daniel?
Yeah, I just wanted to read off. We got a question from a community attendee here about whether you could explain again the circumstances under which a BolaWrap would be deployed. It seems it might be excessive to use this on people who do not pose an active threat to others. So if it's short of active aggression, how do you make that call?
So I think in my mind, and certainly, very open to continued community input as it relates to policy if we do intend to secure and deploy these BolaWraps. But, I think certainly this isn't going to be applicable when someone has a weapon. But certainly when someone is engaging in, active aggression or defensive resistance, where it's clear that we are not going to be able to take this person into custody without the use of some sort of available tool. And I think in my mind, this is one of the least impactful tools that we could use. It doesn't stun, it doesn't create any visible injury. It literally just incapacitates. And so I think that that the level of resistance that we would be inclined to approve the use of this would probably be at defensive resistance, which is one stage before active aggression. Again, with the goal of trying to de-escalate every encounter so that we don't have to use any level of force at all. But then we do find ourselves in a situation where we have to use force, being able to use the lowest level of force that's effective.
There was a second community question too, Daniel. You want to?
Sure. The question relates to research that has shown that tasers can be ineffective at de-escalation. People can actually become more aggressive after the taser is fired. Have BolaWraps been studied in the same way?
I don't know. That's something we can certainly look into. I would agree that sometimes after someone is struck with a taser, they can become more aggressive. I think in the instance of the deployment of a BolaWrap, maybe they do become more agitated, but they're, I think, restrained to the degree that that we're able to secure them without having to use force.
Okay. If board members are ready to move on from BOLA questions, I wonder if there are other general questions, either for the chief or his colleague, that board members wanted to ask. So just transitioning into free-form questions, should board members have them.
Chief, I have a question in regards to the use of the body cams, and it came to me as reviewing the incident last month on November 15th. Is there a policy around where officers should wear the cameras? I know that there's some departments that have a policy around wearing it on the shooting side, and it came to me because the video was very much obstructed by which appear to be the officer's arms. Is there any policy about where the body cams need to be placed at DPD?
I believe so, and where I think the majority of officers wear them is on the chest. So either the center of the chest or one side or the other of the chest.
Thank you.
Perhaps a follow-up for another time. I know, at least in discussions with one board member, we were sort of generally interested in an update on sort of the training portfolio requirements and the breadth of deployment of training. The question is particularly related to recommendations coming out of the monitor's report from the George Floyd protest, and a number of promises made by the department to do both new and existing training. And so just wondering if in our next meeting with you, Chief, we can get kind of a broader update on where are you with training and how is it going?
Yeah, absolutely can do that.
Okay. Any other board member questions?
Not necessarily a question, Julia, but I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. Chief Jacob, it's good to see you. My name is Alfredo Reyes. I'm the newest member of the board, and really looking forward to familiarize myself with the really important and vital work that's taking place. Born and raised here in Denver on the west side, and now popularized as Baker. But really excited for this opportunity and serving as an advocate for community, for being a bridge. And I want to just jump right in and be able to maybe do a ride along. I don't want to be just at the periphery and at these meetings. I really want to see what y'all are going through, and I'm really grateful for the work that y'all do, for the board too. And yeah, I'm sorry I missed the links. There's a lot of links floating around, and I'm new and I haven't added them all to my calendar, but I'll get better. And yeah, really excited to be here and looking forward to being part of this really important board.
Yeah, well, thank you, and certainly, appreciate your service, and we can certainly facilitate getting you right along.
Thank you.
Alfredo, you missed where I tried to introduce you, but you weren't yet on the call. So sorry about the links. It does take a little bit of adjusting to which link is for what and where. And sometimes board members are floating in their own Zoom universe. So I'm glad that you were able to figure it out. All right. Well,
Alfredo, but
yeah.
These meetings are recorded, so you can go back and hear Julia's fine introduction of
Oh boy, I can't wait. But
pretty mild, I'll just say.
And yeah, I know I probably missed a lot, and you all probably already discussed some of the conversations around the most recent officer-involved shooting. And I looked over the materials and the video, and I just want to. There was a lot of restraint there. There was a lot of restraint there, and I saw the attempts to de-escalate. And yeah, if there's an update on the civilian or the person that I missed.
In terms of his condition, so he actually was released from the hospital very quickly. So he's already been released. I think he was charged with a couple of municipal code violations specific to the gun, and I think the magazine that was a higher capacity than is legally allowed. But in terms of his health, he's recovering. He's not hospitalized.
Okay, and the other question that I have, if it's all right, so let's walk me through the alternative, right? Say that the escalation would have worked. He would have put his hands above his head. What would have been the alternative? Y'all would have. He would have gotten on his knees. He would have put his hands up. Y'all would have gotten the gun. Would he really not have been charged, as the officer said? We just want to know what's up. What would the alternative be?
Well, I mean, I think that what would have happened was he would have been placed in safe custody. The weapon would have been recovered. Excuse me. We would have probably had some questions for what are you doing? Why do you have that gun? We made some attempts to identify whether or not it was a legally possessed firearm. I think the two charges being the open carry and the magazine being beyond capacity. I think that would have been left up to officer discretion in terms of whether or not that would have just been a citation or a warning, or if the person would have been placed in custody for that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's part of the thing that I'm really interested in. How do we share those success stories, if you will? What the community often gets is just the times where things have gone wrong. And how do we build that trust where you
Yeah.
say, you know, if you would have complied, this is what would have happened. And these are the success stories,
Yeah.
so that we can start changing some of that narrative.
Yeah, well, and I think our partnership with Washington State University is going to be helpful, because they're going to be going over body worn camera video and looking for those instances where we were able to successfully de-escalate any situation. It could be someone that had a gun that decided to drop it because of the rapport that we established. Yeah, I mean, so I think that we are looking for those examples that not only will be able will allow us to use them for training for better outcomes in the future, but also allow us to celebrate the fact that here's an example of a successful de-escalation where someone complies with the instructions that they're provided, and there's a safe outcome.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, with that, Chief Thomas, thank you so much for your time. And to your colleague as well, Commander, thank you for helping us understand the potential for this new tool. Board members, actually, Monitor Castle, do you have matters to discuss in executive session?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if I may have a motion to adjourn to an executive session.
So moved.
Great, a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Any opposed? All right. So we will now move to executive session. Alfredo, that's a separate link. And so if you need it, just shoot me a text and I'll make sure you have the right one. Otherwise, we'll see board members over there. And thanks for your time today, members of the public who joined.